Character details, based on the uploaded image. Main character, Emily Parker, age 32. Gender, female. Appearance, fair skin, warm smile, light blue eyes. Hair, long strawberry blonde hair, softly waved and worn over one shoulder. Clothing, simple cream-colored knit sweater. Features, gentle expression, natural beauty, approachable and kind demeanor. Personality, patient, thoughtful, humble, compassionate, resilient. Father, Richard Parker, age 64. Appearance, gray hair, tall build, usually dressed in business suits. Personality, proud, achievement-focused, often compares his children. Mother, Susan Parker, age 61. Appearance, neatly styled blonde gray hair, elegant clothing. Personality, concerned with appearances and social status. Older sister, Victoria Parker, age 35. Appearance, professional appearance, dark blonde hair, designer clothing. Personality, intelligent and ambitious, though sometimes unaware of how comparisons hurt others. Kind stranger, Harold Bennett, age 78. Appearance, silver hair, warm eyes, navy blazer. Personality, wise, observant, quietly generous. My parents mocked me for being the dumb one, a 47 million check, proved them wrong. There are some words that stay with us for a lifetime, not because they were spoken loudly, not because they were meant to be cruel, but because they were repeated so often that they slowly became part of the way we see ourselves. For most of my childhood, I was known as the dumb one. My name is Emily Parker, and for many years, that label followed me everywhere. Even when I smiled, even when I worked hard, even when I tried my best. My older sister Victoria was brilliant. At least, that's what everyone said. She earned straight A's, won academic competitions, received scholarships, and seemed to glide through life with a confidence I could never quite find. At family gatherings, relatives would ask about Victoria's latest achievement. Then they would turn to me. Their smiles would become polite, their questions shorter, their expectations smaller. I don't believe most of them intended to be hurtful, but small moments have a way of adding up, one drop at a time, until they fill an entire ocean. My father often laughed when telling stories about us. Victoria got the brains, he would say. Then he'd point toward me. And Emily got the heart. People always laughed. I laughed too, at least on the outside. Inside, I wondered why having a heart never seemed to count as much as having perfect grades. Years passed. Victoria earned admission to prestigious schools. My parents framed every certificate, every award, every accomplishment. Meanwhile, I struggled through community college, not because I lacked effort. I simply learned differently. Numbers didn't come easily to me. Complex theories took longer to understand. But people made sense. Their feelings, their fears, their hopes. I could sit beside someone for 10 minutes and know exactly what they needed. Yet nobody ever gave out trophies for that. So I quietly accepted my role. The ordinary daughter, the disappointing daughter, the daughter who would never accomplish anything remarkable. At least that was the story everyone seemed to believe, including me. But when I was 24, something happened that changed my life. Not dramatically, not overnight, just quietly. The way most important changes happen, I started volunteering at a local senior center. At first, it was only a few hours each week. I helped serve meals, played cards, listened to stories, and discovered something unexpected. The elderly residents didn't care about resumes. They didn't ask where I ranked in school. They didn't compare me to anyone. They simply appreciated being heard. One afternoon, an elderly gentleman named Harold Bennett sat alone by a window. Most volunteers passed by because he rarely spoke. But something about him caught my attention. So I sat beside him and listened. For nearly 3 hours, he talked about his late wife, his childhood, his dreams, his regrets. When I finally stood to leave, he smiled. A genuine smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. "Thank you, Emily," he said softly. "You listened." Those 2 words stayed with me. You listened. No one had ever treated that as a talent before. But over the next 8 years, Harold and I became close friends. I visited regularly. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we simply sat in comfortable silence. He shared stories from decades of business experience, stories about leadership, integrity, kindness, and human nature. Yet he rarely spoke about money. I assumed he had lived an ordinary life, just like everyone else. What I didn't know was that Harold Bennett had quietly built one of the most successful logistics companies in the country. After selling it years earlier, he had become extraordinarily wealthy. But he never flaunted it, never discussed it. Never used it to impress anyone. He preferred being known as a good listener's friend, and I was happy to be exactly that. But meanwhile, family life continued much as before. Victoria's achievements grew larger. My parents' pride grew louder, and I remained in the background. By age 32, I worked as director of community outreach for a nonprofit organization. The salary wasn't impressive. The title wasn't glamorous, but every night I slept peacefully. I believed I was helping people. To me, that mattered. My parents disagreed. Whenever money entered the conversation, comparisons followed. Victoria just bought another property. Victoria received another promotion. Victoria travels first class now? Then came the familiar pause, the uncomfortable silence, the unspoken comparison. I learned not to react. Some battles are too exhausting to fight forever. But then came Victoria's honorary graduation celebration. She had completed an advanced executive program. My parents rented a large ballroom, invited friends, business associates, extended family. Everyone gathered to celebrate her success. I attended because family matters, even when family hurts. The evening unfolded exactly as expected. Speeches, compliments, applause. Then my father stood, a glass of champagne in his hand, pride shining in his eyes. He praised Victoria's intelligence, her determination, her accomplishments. Then he announced something unexpected. He intended to transfer substantial family assets to her, a luxury vehicle, investment properties, several major holdings. The room erupted in applause. I smiled politely. Truly, I wasn't jealous. Victoria had worked hard. She deserved success. What hurt was what came next. My father glanced toward me, then chuckled. Thankfully, Victoria knows how to manage wealth. Scattered laughter filled the room. Emily always was our dreamer. More laughter. Not cruel laughter. Just comfortable laughter. The kind that assumes everyone understands the joke. I felt my face grow warm, so I quietly looked down, as I had done countless times before. But then something unexpected happened. The ballroom doors opened. An elderly man entered, slowly, carefully, supported by a cane. It was Harold. I blinked in surprise. He wasn't supposed to be there. In fact, I hadn't seen him in several weeks due to health issues. The room grew quiet. Harold walked directly toward me. Not toward my parents, not toward Victoria, toward me. When he reached my table, he smiled, then handed me a sealed envelope. His voice was barely above a whisper. Emily. I looked up. Yes? He squeezed my hand gently. It's time they see who you really are. But the room fell silent. Every eye followed the exchange. Confused, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a certified financial document. At first, I thought I was misunderstanding what I was reading. So I read it again, then a third time. My hands began trembling. The document confirmed that Harold had established a charitable foundation and named me its president and primary steward. The foundation's initial funding amount, $47 million. I stared at the number, certain it couldn't be real. Harold nodded softly. It is. The room remained completely silent. Not a single fork moved. Not a single glass clinked. Even the musicians had stopped playing. But Harold requested the microphone. The crowd watched as he stepped onto the small stage. Then he spoke, calmly, clearly, with remarkable dignity. For years, he said, people assumed intelligence could be measured by grades, titles, and income. His eyes found mine. I disagree. He paused. Emily visited me when nobody else did. The room remained still. She listened when nobody else listened. Another pause. She showed kindness when there was nothing to gain. I felt tears forming, not because of the money, because someone finally understood me. Harold continued. For 8 years, I observed her character. His voice grew warmer. And character is far more valuable than credentials. The audience listened carefully. In business, I've met thousands of brilliant people. He smiled. But truly kind people are rare. But when Harold finished speaking, nobody applauded immediately. Many were emotional, including me. Eventually, applause filled the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just sincere. The kind of applause that comes from respect. My father sat quietly, for perhaps the first time in my life, speechless. But later that evening, he approached me, slowly, almost cautiously. Emily. I turned toward him. His eyes seemed different somehow. Softer, older. I owe you an apology. I said nothing. He continued. I spent years measuring success incorrectly. The words hung between us, heavy, honest, painfully overdue. I'm sorry. 3 simple words. Yet they carried decades of meaning. But something important happened in that moment. Not because my father apologized. not because of the money, but because I realized I no longer needed his approval. For years I had chased validation, wanted someone else to tell me I mattered, yet Harold had taught me something far more valuable. Our worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. It never was, and it never will be. Over the following years, the foundation expanded nationwide. We funded community programs, senior centers, scholarships, mental health initiatives, food assistance networks. Every decision reflected the values Harold taught me. Listen first, judge less, help where you can, treat people with dignity, simple ideas, yet powerful ones. Harold passed away peacefully 2 years later. At his memorial service, hundreds attended, not because of his wealth, but because of his kindness. When my turn came to speak, I shared a lesson he once told me. He had smiled and said, "Emily, people spend their lives trying to look important." Then he tapped his heart. But the people who change lives are usually the ones who make others feel important. The room grew quiet. Many wiped away tears, because everyone understood the truth in those words. Today, whenever someone asks about my success, I tell them something simple. The $47 million changed many lives, but it wasn't the greatest gift Harold gave me. The greatest gift was helping me see myself clearly, not as the dumb one, not as the forgotten daughter, not as the person who came second, but as someone whose kindness had value, someone whose compassion mattered, someone who was enough, exactly as she was. And if life has taught me anything, it is this. Grades fade, titles change, money comes and goes, but kindness leaves fingerprints on hearts that can remain for generations. Sometimes the world celebrates the loudest voices, the fastest minds, the biggest achievements, yet often the people who quietly listen, the people who show up, the people who care are creating miracles no one can see. And one day, those quiet acts of kindness become their own reward. Not always in money, not always in recognition, but in something far more meaningful. A life filled with purpose, a heart filled with peace, and the knowledge that in a world hungry for compassion, you chose to be kind, and that is never a small thing.